We're breaking down the position groups that will define the AFC East and the NFC East today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Happy Monday to you here on the program.
Happy Monday, Kyle Krabs.
Any smelling salts this morning after a primetime Sunday preseason showcase for the Buffalo Bills last night?
Oh, listen, what could be better than primetime Sunday night preseason action on the road where you don't play your starters and you have the worst loss in the last 50 years of preseason for the Bills? I mean,
is that true?
This is unbelievable. It's an unbelievably bad performance. So, the good news is I got to stay up for an extra hour and do Bill Squad afterwards, and then do my own individual podcast on that to really bring home the night.
Life.
Oh man, you kidding me?
Go to bed at 2 o'clock.
I actually got in at 1:48. I looked at the Fitbit this morning. I was asleep at 1:48. I am elated with that, and that's the thing. When it's a performance like that, not hard to weed through that. You know, there's not a whole lot of nuance.
Right. Oh, we didn't play the starters. Who cares? Okay. Where are our bright spots? I saw you had 2 bright spots. One was Jordan Hancock, correct?
Yeah, Jordan Hancock, man. Until he hurt his shoulder. Hopefully he's okay there. Wasn't a whole lot of good from the game.
Right. So we are doing both East divisions today on the show, speaking of the Buffalo Bills, and we'll get to them in segment 2. But the objective is, and Joe, on our NFL scouting database, on our sortable scoring sheet, I do have it filtered for just the divisions we're talking about today. And it's all color coded to be able to see like where the really high or the really low graded position groups are. So this should be helpful for our conversation.
Nice.
But it's what are the defining position rooms that are going to help determine how this division shakes itself out in 2025, where the two polar opposites as far as teams winning the division every year. It's a different team in the NFC East for like 20 years. And then in the AFC East, it was like New England for 20 years consecutively and now Buffalo for 5, right? So like very different optics of like how this division has played out historically over the course of recent history. But what are the position rooms that define it this year? So we'll start with the East. We're going to go team by team and present the candidates. And then at the end of the segment, we'll finalize which ones we like the most. So starting with the Philadelphia Eagles, Joe, offensive line. I think if you can guarantee, and they've already had an injury scare there in Philadelphia with Landon Dickerson, but if they have a healthy offensive line, I think that's a group that will have them humming at a certain stratosphere no matter what. And there's different ways that different teams look to build their rosters out and what the identifying variables are. Philadelphia gives themselves a lot of margins with what they have assembled on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call out. And you complement that offensive line with those skill players, it's a pretty good offense. For Philly with me, I actually have down the defensive line. And they won the Super Bowl last year for a lot of reasons. But I'd argue in that game, at least, the leading reason was what that defensive line was able to get done, creating organic pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And there's been some turnover. Josh Sweat is gone. Milton Williams gone. Brandon Graham, he's not part of this mix. And so they've done well to replenish. I like a lot of their options. I think Jalen Carter in year 3, I mean, it could be a superstar type ascension where he's already kind of there. But I'm looking at these edge players where you have Nolan Smith and Azeez Ojolari, Josh Uche, guys like that really need to settle in. We need to see what Moro Ajomo can offer this team. Ty Robinson as potentially their third D tackle. So it's about replenishing the well there and being mindful of how critical that was in their Super Bowl win last season.
I'm glad that you went with defensive line, because this isn't meant to just be, and I know I started with, hey, this is probably the best offensive line in football, right? Like, It's not meant to necessarily be, here's the best position rooms. It's what swings the pendulum. So I think you make a great case for Philadelphia there. For Washington, I had a couple different directions I thought about.
And I think we're going to have the same things, and I'll take whatever you don't.
No, I'm going to make you go first because I went first.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. I like when this happens because it really forces me to funnel in on what the most important thing is. And I want to talk offensive line here for Washington.
It was what I was leading as well.
So. Well, now you get to go. I think there's a few different ways you can go. But as you consider right now, this team doesn't have things figured out with Terry McLaurin. That's concerning. And there's probably a lot to say about the wide receivers, but we're talking about Jaden Daniels, second-year quarterback, what he put out there last season. And I think so much of their success will be dictated by how this offensive line comes together. When you have a new left tackle in Laramie Tunsil, your best offensive lineman, Sam Cosmi, is going to be on the shelf for a bit. How do you sort this out? Where do you play Brandon Coleman? Is Josh Connerly ready to go? Where does he slot? I think these things have to get sorted out because you need Jaden Daniels to be able to play his best football. I think that's going to be maximized when the offensive line is secure, especially if there's going to be some challenges potentially at wide receiver. So just kind of lasering in on all of the concerns with Washington, I think at the forefront of that's how this offensive line comes together in 2025.
Yeah, I would go offensive line as well. So when we get to the end of the segment and it's time to pick the five, I'll have Washington at the top of my charts. But I will invoke the skill group where they're now fielding apparently some offers for Brian Robinson Jr. as a trade dangle. I think that's a really interesting development, and it's bodes well for Krosky Merritt, the Arizona running back, who's just kind of been like the buzz of training camp there, and seems like and it makes sense when you consider Cliff Kingsbury and the offense and the spread elements, and Brian Robinson kind of being a singles and doubles hitter, right? Like a physical between the tackles, singles and doubles hitter, as compared to Merritt gives you, I think, more in the passing game. There's an explosive element to his game that you don't have. And what does that pecking order look like? You're now talking about a day 3 rookie potentially assuming a very large role in the backfield. That's interesting to watch unfold. The Terry McLaurin hold-in has been continued and what they just activated him off of the did not report list this past weekend, kind of starting to ramp up. I mean, they kind of alluded to, hey, it's time to get rolling here. Deebo Samuel, there's a lot riding on Deebo for a team in San Francisco that offloaded Deebo Samuel, and what does he have left in the tank? And there was some questions about his playing. Like, there's a lot of questions, I think, for Washington. The good news is I do think they have a truck, not a trailer, at quarterback to kind of help bring the rest of the pieces into the vision and create. But the cast around Jaden Daniels right now, and after a year of getting film on him and the offense, it's going to be very interesting to kind of see how all of this comes together for Washington this year, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And we didn't even get into the defense, which there's stuff to talk about there.
Dallas.
I've got secondary here. We'll see. I mean, a lot of these guys are hurt, man. Trayvon Diggs hadn't really been around. Siobhan Revel still working himself back. I mean, there's a real possibility this team's leaning into Kyer Elam to be a starter, and I'm actually pretty optimistic about that because I don't think Kyer Elam was gonna come together in Buffalo based on how he got beat out by Benford and kind of the just always looking over his shoulder and not really being able to play free. I think he needed to get away, and he might be an answer, but I think this defense has some players up front to work with. I mean, obviously we need more to emerge, especially some of the young guys, Mozzie Smith, Donovan Izaraku as a rookie. But I think this secondary and who's going to be in and how it comes together in year one under Matt Eberflus is going to be really important. I think you can look at 2 or 3 spots and kind of wonder who's available and what direction it goes and how they perform.
I'll go with defensive line, not named Micah Parsons. Now, Micah Parsons has his own thing that's going on, right? But really the defensive interior, they got a great contract value in Oso Odigizua, but it's time to go for Mozzie Smith, right? They got Jay Toye as a 7th round rookie, and they got a pass rush rotational guy in Solomon Thomas when they get into rush fronts, but I don't love kind of the spine of the defense.
Yeah.
For the front 7 and the ability to defend the run, and Mozzie's got to grow up in a big way there. So I think that for Dallas, in the midst of what they struggled with at times last year, and even the year before that when they had the 12-5 record, stands out to me. So I know we got to get the break before we do the Giants, but that's presented 6 thus far.
All right, we're going to get to the Giants, tie ribbon on the NFC East, and turn our attention to the AFC here next. Folks, be sure to stick with us. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. Having a trusted professional to talk things through with can help cut down the noise and keep you focused on what matters most. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit into your schedule. You just click connect and you can switch therapists anytime if you need to. So talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners can get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
You can tangibly feel the rubber hitting the road, like a week out from roster cuts with these trades that happen, and we're going to get into them a little bit at the end of the show, assuming we leave ourselves time.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I'm sitting here glued to my timeline simultaneously with this Matt Judon watch now thing that's going on.
Yeah, Matt Judon watch after a couple of trades. What does it all mean?
It's gonna these last couple shifts before the season starts. Now we'll get to the AFC East in just a minute. We got the New York Giants. It has to be the quarterback position, right?
Probably.
Like the whole outlook for, and Jackson Dart looked good again in the preseason. But you're starting to get the Jameis Winston teases and drops of being available, and maybe teams are going to call on Jameis. But I think they have functional bodies on the offensive line. I know Malik Neighbors has been banged up a little bit, and there was a toe thing that's been a lingering issue, and they had a management plan, and I think it's back tightness here in training camp. But they have weaponry as well. It's been tying it all together. And for the Giants, where they spent really aggressively on defense, are you going to be a team that can play complementary football? Or are you going to be the 2022, 2023 New York Jets, right? Like, I think they've got a lot to like on defense, but if they can't get functional quarterback play, it's not going to matter to a certain degree. So for me, the only conversation piece for me with the Giants is the quarterback position.
I tend to agree, man. I think there's some plus elements to this roster. There's some sufficient elements, but the biggest unknown X factor variable is, what do you get from Russ Wilson? I think I know what that looks like. And if you pivot to Jackson Dart, what does that look like? And boy, the preseason has been exciting, but it's the preseason. And
right.
I mean, I'm not trying to diminish anything Jackson Dart has done. I'm very impressed, but a little different ball game when there's game plans and, an opponent that's playing their starters.
So let's finalize this 5. For me, I think the quarterback position in New York has to be on the list.
Yeah.
I would be inclined to take one of the 2 from Dallas. It's just a question of which one you think is more needle moving.
I'm always going to lean towards the front. So you went with the front. Let's go with the front.
Okay. And that's, the run defense in Dallas, and they haven't had big linebackers in the first place. And they really don't have, I think they have less like tangible proof of concept of run defending than what they've had in past years. Cause at least in past years, they had like some older vet run stuffers that can play the A-gap, right?
Yeah.
They don't have that this year. I would be inclined to go with Philly's defensive line and then the 2 on Washington.
Yeah.
The skill group and the offensive line.
Yeah. I came in with that exact list, except for I'm going to go with you with Cowboys defensive line.
Instead of the secondary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So those are the 5 position groups that we feel are going to define the NFC East and the ceilings and floors and how it all shakes out for that division. And then also in the bigger picture. Let's go to the East. Buffalo Bills. I have to let you start things off. Go right ahead.
For me, it's a defensive line with the Bills. I think it's been the challenge that they've not been able to get enough clutch impact, especially in the postseason, to kind of close the gap, right? I mean, these games against Kansas City have been unbelievably close. They've had their chances each of the last 3 times, but I think their inability to get a big stop in a key moment has been the challenge, and they've done a ton. The Bills have done a ton for the defensive line, signing Joey Bosa, signing Michael Hoyt, signing Larry Ogunjobi, investing 3 of their top 4 draft picks on defensive line talent. It's a big deal, right? And I think everything about that defense starts up front. So you can maybe bring up the safeties and how that's going to come together, and CB2 with Maxwell Harrison working through an LCL sprain and Trey White potentially having to start at the beginning of the season. Like I understand bringing up any of that, but those situations are going to be a lot better if this front does what it's supposed to do. So the Bills need to make good on these D-line investments. They've been pretty diligent about investing on the D-line throughout Brandon Beane's tenure. It just hasn't always been a good story to tell with how those investments go. These investments need to work out, or else, they could be bounced again in the postseason and wondering why you can't get a stop.
Well, I think that's what it comes down to, right? Is when you play the style of football that Buffalo does, we're a 4-2-5 with a nickel, and it doesn't matter what personnel you put out on the field.
Yeah.
We're going to play that. When you choose to do that, and then teams choose to challenge you with size, you got to have guys that can control the line of scrimmage. Yeah. You got to have guys that can create some knockback. You got to have guys that keep your back 7 clean. And so I'm with you with Buffalo. When you consider all that they poured into this group, I'm with you wholeheartedly. Now, did I give some consideration to the safety room? Yeah. But I think when you cross-reference it with the style of play, I think the defensive line is the right answer for Buffalo. And this goes without saying we're admitting quarterback. Like if Josh Allen gets hurt,
yeah,
right? Like it's a totally different conversation.
For this entire experiment, I really tried to avoid known things. Like, Josh Allen's probably one of the most important factors in the entire league, but I think you have to count on a certain level of performance there. So I went with
that can be applied to effectively every team.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, some teams like Miami have higher injury risk at the quarterback position than others. And I think Tua Tagovailoa's availability will kind of set the ceiling and the floor for this football team. Where if you tell me the Dolphins get 17 games of Tua like they did in 2023, I'd probably project them to have 9 or 10 wins. Now, where it falls from there, depending on how much time he misses, if he misses time, that's hard to forecast. I actually have 2 for Miami, and they're both on the defensive side of the ball. It's the defensive front and the cornerback room. For the polar opposite reasons, where the entire complexity of the defense, the complexion of the defense is made up on, we are really banking on this to compensate for this right now. Right. So those 2 things have to go right. And obviously the weight of responsibility falls on Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, that group of players up front to offset what is a very shaky looking secondary group that has already lost what would have been their best player coming into the season, Kader Kohou, for the year.
The Dolphins are going to be the team that I'm going to want to invoke 2 for, because we have 5, there's 4 teams in every division. I think the Dolphins
could go 3 and put quarterback in this.
Sure. Well, that I actually do. I want to focus on the quarterback for Miami with Tua, because if you look at, and I know that you know these things, but over the last 3 years of Mike McDaniel, when Tua is available, this is a top 3 passing offense, however you want to measure it. All the efficiency metrics will show you it's a top 3 passing offense. Without Tua, it's bottom 5 passing offense. I mean, literally number 3 in EPA over the last 3 years with Tua, dead last without Tua in terms of EPA per dropback. There's nothing more important to the Dolphins. I know you can have concerns about some things on defense or whatever you want to invoke. Nothing is more important than Tua's availability because this team is different. And I wish I could pull the Mike McDaniel's coaching record with it without Tua. It's everything is optimized
I think
with
Tua. He's 24-16 with Tua,
which is it's a really good win percentage.
And I think he's got like a 30% win percentage without Tua.
So whatever you want to say about Tua, and you I'm sure people have their criticisms for what he can and cannot do. This team is very comfortably best and optimized when he's available. And so I don't really have concerns about what he can do if he's available. It's just be available, because I think that's the difference between a team that can contend for a playoff spot versus a team that, might be picking in the top half of the draft.
Well, if Tua missed significant time, I would say they would probably lose 3 out of every 4 games that they played without Tua. Now, we'll see with Zach Wilson.
Sure.
And, Quinn Ewers has a lot of parallels to the system. So you open the door for, I think, maybe some better stylistic fits than what you've had in years past, where it was Snoop Huntley and Teddy Bridgewater. And those are very different players in and of themselves. And neither one of them really fits what this offense you aspire to do. So it's a really interesting chemistry experiment as far as different variables and traits and skill sets. But I think you see somebody who leans into some things that Tua has done and had success at, but at the college level. And then you get the big time toolsy guy who you're hoping can kind of pick up the flow of this offense and how it's supposed to be in rhythm.
And even I'd invoke Mike White into that conversation as well, where I like this group of depth quarterbacks. Maybe they're less proven than some of the guys you just went through, but I think they have a skill set that's going to be better for what they want to get done offensively.
We have the Patriots and Jets left here on the show. We're going to get into them next, finalize our 5 for the AFC East. Make sure you guys stick with us.
This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat. Get your draft board ready. Buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year and every year I play on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first ever league or a veteran in your millionth league. I've been using Yahoo for years, and I love how smooth the draft day experience is. It's easy to set up a league. The mobile app is awesome. And it's super fun on the message boards to talk smack. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. And to kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season right around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL.
The New England Patriots. This is going to feel very similar to the Washington Commanders for me, because I think you can invoke both the offensive line and trying to get the right combination of players there in front of Drake May. And then Travion Henderson feels like he's a smashing success based off of 2 weeks in the preseason, but the wide receiver room, I think, has a lot of questions about what the pecking order is going to look like and what Steph Diggs has left as a ceiling to kind of set the ceiling of the group. So the entire cast around Drake May, I think, has 2 very worthy candidates as well.
I agree. I think there's a lot less to talk about defensively with New England. Yeah, I think they're going to be just fine there, but that receiver core kind of coming together, because I don't know, there's 9 names that you could tell me makes this roster. So figuring out which 5 or 6 you're going to keep, and then from there, who's your guys in 11 personnel. I think that's really important to get that sorted out. And if that's, who is it? Kyle Williams, Steph Diggs, Mac Collins, Pop Douglas, Keishawn Butte, Chisholm's a thing. Like, that's too many guys. It's a good problem to have. I mean, I'm not sure how much quality exists across the board, but
they should be able to trade a couple of those guys.
Yeah, they should. I mean, if John Mechie you can fetch something for John Mechie, there's probably some opportunities here.
Wow, John Mechie just catching strays here.
Listen, I'm sad. I wanted Jahan Dotson to be a thing for the Eagles this year, but maybe he still will. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but I agree, man. We could debate O-line and receiver, but I think those pieces and them coming together appropriately will define if this Patriots offense can complement what I think is going to be a really good defense.
All right, so super casual, but we have, I think, more position rooms invoked than we had for the entire NFC East, and we still have a team left in the AFC East. It's the Jets, where I want to avoid doing the thing that I did with the Giants. I think it'd be very easy to do it.
Yeah.
Right? It'd be very easy to say, well, Justin Fields, how it's time to leave the nest. Can you fly or not? And if you can't fly, it's going to be a long season in New York. But I think the group that I'm really interested in with the Jets is the skill group, because it's Braylon Allen sounds like he's getting a lot of momentum, and Breece Hall's in a contract year. So how do they handle that split? They've got Mason Taylor as a second-round draft choice at tight end, who could be, I think, a nice force multiplier if he's able to get his footing as a rookie, because of what you expect the Jets to do from a run game perspective and playing in heavier personnels, and they want to challenge teams with size, and he's a guy who can win with the ball in his hands. Obviously, you have Garrett Wilson at wide receiver, but what else do you have there? You got a guy like Malachi Corley, who was a day 2 pick last year, who never really got his feet off the ground. I just think there's a lot of questions with what is around Fields that I think makes it the Jets' offensive outlook less of just quarterback boom or bust, like with New York, with the Giants, I should say, in the NFC East.
I think that's a good direction to take the conversation. I want to focus more on the defensive line. I think if the Jets are going to be a team that can be competitive this year, their formula is going to be bully ball. And I have a level of confidence that they can probably run the ball pretty well. They got a good offensive line and some guys that can really move bodies, and a stable of backs and a mobile quarterback. I mean, yeah, I don't know how efficient their passing offense will be. I have a lot of questions about that, but the piece of that equation of being a bully ball team is going to be, you got to be able to stop the run, and you've got to be able to affect the other quarterback with your defensive line. And I like Quinnen Williams. I just don't know about the rest of this group. Jermaine Johnson back off of injury. I think Will McDonald has some appeal on passing downs, but I don't see him as a big time edge setter. And I have questions about this depth. And so I think that's the missing piece. And I've said this about the Jets. I didn't think they would have every box checked in year one of this new regime, right. But I feel like this is the one where it's like, there's just not enough here in my mind for them to be as firm up front defensively to play this style of football that I think is necessary for them to win games. So see if some of these young guys can take steps, right? They have a few of them that are kind of low investments, but I think they're going to need that to happen for this formula to work.
All right. So we need to pick 5, and I think we've invoked 7.
Yeah.
No, I think we invoked, was it 8?
There's a lot.
It was 4 between Miami and Buffalo, and then New England was 5 because we went with the skill group and the offensive line. So that's 6, and then we just did 2 more. So we have 8. So we got to get rid of 3 here. Draft dudes do math. I think the Bills' defensive line for Buffalo should be on the list.
I agree with that,
because that's like the big picture, full NFL spectrum one. I'm cool splitting one of mine with quarterback for Miami for you if you want. It's a question of which one do you like between the defensive front / the corners, with like, do you like the questions of the secondary or the potential force multiplying strength of the front?
Yeah, I think I look at the Dolphins front very favorable. I have a level of expectation that that's going to be an above average situation. It's the secondary piece where I don't know as much that I think is more essential to this conversation.
Okay. So we'll go Bills defensive line, Dolphins quarterback situation, Dolphins secondary, Patriots skill group
or offensive line. Like,
right. I have more questions with the skill group, but I think you could argue from a fundamental football standpoint than what Vrabel is looking to do. The offensive line probably has more of a weight if you were going to weigh out their offensive outlook this year.
I'd nudge there, but
okay. So Patriots offensive line.
Yeah.
And then Although we could take them both if we want to omit the Jets, but the Jets is.
I think we should try to have representation from every team, and then one team will have two.
Okay.
But we got to decide, right? I had the D line.
I had the skill group.
Well, pretty important.
I at least have some level of confidence with the Jets defensively with what other players they have, like in the back seven.
Okay.
Like we love their linebacker room, right? Their linebackers are ballers. They got sauce. They've got Carter's a good nickel. I like Cisco at safety. I would want to go with this skill group for the Jets.
All right. I'll give you that one.
Okay. There you go. So there's our 5 determining X factor position rooms for the AFC East this year. We have like 2 minutes. What happened over the weekend that you want to talk about?
We got some interesting player for player trades. Right?
So it was Jahan Dotson and Harrison Bryant got flip-flopped with a player swap.
John Mechie.
Yeah. And that got spurred on by Brevin Jordan in Houston went down with another what appears to be season-ending injury, which is a brutal break for him. I think Harrison Bryant's a good hedge for that kind of player.
Yeah, no doubt.
And with Houston, they drafted both Iowa State receivers.
Yeah,
kind of the writing was on the wall, right?
Christian Kirk is around. Yeah. So good spot for him. We'll see.
Makes sense. And then we had Colin Saunders flipped for Luke Fortner in a player-for-player swap with New Orleans and Jacksonville. Do you I want to give you a chance to get your thoughts in on that first.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville needed a little bit more in this interior defensive line. Mason Smith's he's a second-round pick, but he's behind right now. Hamilton's aging. I mean, Tyler Lacey, Eric Armstead. I think that type of skill set can be helpful for what this team wants to be defensively. Plus, he can do backflips.
Never hurts, right?
Never hurts.
Let me ask you this. Should anybody else, like, if you were a team that needed somebody, would you be calling the Saints? Like, do you think reality's kind of set in for the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, when Tyrann Mathieu retired, it's like, all right, come on, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Yeah, call about whoever. Call about. I don't know if they would trade Cam Jordan, but if you need to fill out your roster, you should give them a call because we know that they're not going to trade back and collect assets. The best thing they're going to do is sell.
This might be the only way they get to do it.
Right.
That's going to do it for us here today on the show. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys as always for checking out Locked On NFL Scouting. We hope you enjoyed. We're doing this for each of the sets of division all week long here on the program. So we will be back again tomorrow to do the North divisions of both the AFC and NFC. We hope to see you then.